We want you to be a part of the studio audience in historic Studio D for Delmarva Life. Trust me, this is a great time for everybody. To book your seat, all you have to do is visit delmarvalife.com and click on the show tab. There on the right side of the page, you'll find the ticket tab under For Our Audience. Or you can just give us a call, 443-880-9116. She's lived a large part of her life in the spotlight, probably most notably as the second lady of the United States when her husband Dick Cheney served as the vice president from 2001 to 2009. But outside of the political world, Lynne Cheney also has a love for history. As a matter of fact, when her family left office, Mrs. Cheney immersed herself in archives for 5 years in order to learn about and uncover the story of another great figure in our history, James Madison. She's been studying on him since 1987, and now Mrs. Cheney brings his story to life in James Madison, A Life Reconsidered. We are so honored to have her on Delmarva Life this afternoon. Mrs. Cheney, thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, let me ask you, what was it about James Madison that sparked your interest?
You know, I had known about James Madison growing up, of course, but I came to realize over the years that I had not fully appreciated the depth, the magnificence, really, of his accomplishments. The father of the Constitution, the architect of the Bill of Rights, the president who first took us to war under the Constitution, just to mention a few things.
Yeah.
I had not understood how important he was, and I think that generally we haven't paid as much attention to Madison as we should in order to understand the greatness of this country. I was joined in this idea that Madison was underappreciated way back in 1963 by John Kennedy, who said that he was our most underrated president.
Right. Well, now, you are one of few women around the world who has experienced and understands what it's like being married to a major political figure. What about James Madison? Did his wife influence him?
Oh, Dolly was wonderful. She was beautiful. He fell in love with her one day when he saw her walking down the street. He convinced her to marry him. And she was just this amazingly warm and outgoing person, by no means a political advisor, but she knew how to make people happy.
Yeah.
And Washington in the early days was not a place where it was easy to be happy. Everyone was crowded into boarding houses. It was a brand new city, so few people had homes of their own. The Madisons were lucky enough to, so Dolly threw open the doors, and senators and congressmen. She didn't care what party they were in. She didn't care if they were, you know, of the elite or not of the elite. She just welcomed everyone. And because Congress decided who the presidential nominees were going to be, she was very helpful in getting him the nomination.
Oh my goodness. Okay, now here is a difficult question, I think. It maybe not. American history, do you think it's had much influence on today's political landscape?
Well, I worry that we're not teaching American history as well as we should in our schools. And so that's one of the reasons I wrote a number of children's books while Dick was vice president, to try to, you know, bring our kids along. But I think we as adults don't know enough history either. We sometimes think to ourselves, okay, well, there's this issue. Can the police search your cell phone when they stop you because you're missing a tail light?
Right.
And people will say, well, no, they shouldn't be able to do that. And the other person will say, well, you know, maybe you're in a drug ring or something. They should be able to do that. It's not a matter of how we feel about it. It's a matter of what the Constitution says. And when the Supreme Court decides this case, they'll go back to the Fourth Amendment that James Madison wrote that talks about our protection from unreasonable search and seizure. So I just think it's useful to educate ourselves on how the Constitution is a part of our everyday lives and how the decisions we make still go back to that very fundamental document.
Wonderful stuff. Mrs. Cheney, thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, let me ask you, what was it like living in the spotlight of being America's second lady?
Well, it was a wonderful experience. I think that, you know, it was just a remarkable front seat on history. Much of it great, some of it disturbing. We were in the Naval Observatory. Dick was vice president during 9/11.
Right.
So, I just feel privileged that I've had that experience.
Well, let me ask you this. You're in the spotlight, the family's in the spotlight. It was a very public spat between your daughters on gay marriage. How do you handle that?
Well, you just try to let these things not be public. And sometimes it happens if you're a public figure, and it's painful when interactions in the family become public. But basically, I myself just try my best not to talk about it to people in television.
Mrs. Cheney, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Lynne Cheney, author of James Madison, A Life Reconsidered. Now, if you'd like to know more about her or more details on her new book, just go to delmarvalife.com and click on the show tab. So once I get that elbow out of my ribs, you now have a good book to read. How about a tasty dish to go along with it? Up next on Delmarva Life, we're in the Delmarva Life kitchen mixing a whole lot of fresh flavors into one tasty bowl. And a little bit later on, you're invited to the ultimate Preakness party. It's almost time for the Preakness Palooza. On top of a great time, you'll be helping to change a life too. Find out how you can get in on all of the action. Delmarva Life, we'll be right back.